Assalamu alaikum dear students. I hope you are doing good. So far in this course we have covered uh, definition of communication, the communication process, its additional and essential steps. Then we move to the type of verbal and non-verbal communication. In verbal communication we further divided this type into two more categories like written communication and spoken communication. So in written communication we talked about its definition, its different types, and its advantages and disadvantages. Okay, so in today's lecture we are going to talk about oral communication. Well, oral communication is the type again a type of verbal communication that uses words, but in this case the words are spoken, the word of mouth. Okay, these words are not written, rather they are spoken words. So any type of communication that uses spoken words, that is an example of oral communication. For example, I am talking to you right now in this video. This is a type of oral communication. Likewise, this oral communication may also be in different forms. For example, if you talk to someone face to face, that is an example of oral communication. Okay, video calls, video conferences are there. So telephonic conversations are also oral communication. And when somebody is doing a public speech, so that is again a type of oral communication. If we compare both written and oral communication, so in between these two, this one, the oral communication, is the fastest method of communication between people. So as we already know, written communication is something time consuming. We had to spend a lot of time to manage material first to use for the written communication, then we have to write. So in that way we spend much time on doing written communication, while on the other hand oral communication is very handy. You dial a call and you start just speaking, that is spoken or oral communication. So that's simple. Okay, moving on to the next point. These are some examples of oral communication. See, in this larger picture there is a meeting going on, so it is again a type of oral communication. Likewise, in the second illustration there is a girl on phone call, that is also a written communication. These meetings uh, may involve more than two people. Okay, so one-on-one conversations are also oral communication. For example, if there is not a formal meeting, rather if two people are in conversation, just they are just gossiping, even that is an oral communication. So let's talk about some of its advantages. So it means oral communication here, it is quicker and it saves time. So comparing the two, written and oral communication, this one is the faster way of communication, uh, because here we have no time to manage material or uh, to make necessary requirements. For example, as we had in written communication, we have to collect, for example, notebooks or tablets or computer, laptop, etc., that we use for written communication. So here this is not the case with oral communication. Here you meet the person and start talking to them. For example, if you want to talk to somebody on phone call, you have to just dial their number and you start talking to them. So that is that much easy. Second advantage of this type of communication is it is more effective than written communication. So this point is very much interesting. Here, see, the non-verbal aspect also dominates oral communication, while on the other hand written communication is lacking that very feature. Because when you are in a face-to-face conversation with someone, you are physically present in front of them, or you are on a video call. So, or you have sent them some video of yourself, or even if you are not appearing in that video call, or even you are not visible to them, even then your voice is there. The tone of your voice, the speed, the ups and downs in your voice may communicate specific and certain aspects of your mood. Okay, that's way it is more effective than written communication. So written communication lacks that very aspect. If you want to convey some message in uh, a strong mood, for example, if you want to show some command, you stress the language, the words that you speak. But if you write these same words on a piece of paper, the receiver may read them very comfortably, very calm, and they may not get that order that way. So this second point is the good example of having impression with your voice and your presence and your appearance in front of the receiver. So that is an interesting one. The third advantage is it establishes a personal touch and leads to greater understanding. Yes, of course, when you are physically present in front of your audience or your receiver, okay, that makes a personal connection. Just because you are physically present, that means a lot. Okay, likewise, for example, these days we are not taking physical classes, we are not indulge in face-to-face conversation. So the personal touch is missing here. Okay, so when we are sitting in a face-to-face class, the teacher and the students, they see each other, and they come to know each other personalities very much, and that leads to greater understanding, because having a look at the person that you are talking to is enough to understand that if the person is in a good mood or bad mood, or even they are friendly or not. So that is something that is available in oral communication. This third type of advantage is also very important. And the fourth point in advantages is in oral communication we receive immediate reaction, motivation or response of the receiver can be taken here. Okay, so whenever you talk to someone orally, in an oral communication, if you talk to someone, the person may respond to you very swiftly, quickly. The moment you ends your talk, your communication, your point, the moment the other guy or person starts reacting to that, and they may ask questions, they may interrupt you meanwhile. So this is we get immediate reaction from the receiver, and we may get their feedback, their responses very effectively here. And this is the quickest form of communication, in this way that we get their feedback right away. The more communication is conveyed, the message is conveyed rather. For instance, when I deliver the same lecture in the class, so my students are in front of me, and the moment I speak to them, I have my eyes on them. They are looking at me, and they, meanwhile, while listening, they also nod their heads. This shows their attentiveness, and the meaning that they are getting the message properly. So if anybody raises hands, see, I notices that very point, that very moment, that very raising hand very quickly, and I may allow them to ask questions. But in written communication, I send you, for example, I send you an email. First you have to receive that email, then you have to read that email, and after reading, if you have something to ask, or if you have something to send as a feedback, you have to spend much time, and composing another email or a reply to that very email of mine, you send your feedback, that is very much time consuming. So in oral communication, the feedback is very quick, the reactions are very immediate and faster than written communication. Next point is next slide talks about disadvantages of oral communication. Well, uh, it is less reliable, because in oral communication we don't have any proof. For example, in a face-to-face conversation, you talk to someone and the person says a lot of words, but the moment you leave that person, people tend to forget things. That's why it is less reliable, because of the lack of record. Okay, so uh, for example, I commit a promise. Okay, if I promise something, and just because I have no written proof of that promise, if I step back from that promise, you are not a position to challenge that, because you have no proof of that. So that's why you may say you are not reliable, just because the communication was done in orally. So this is the first disadvantage of the oral communication. Second is, it is influenced by self-interest and attitude of the people. This is an interesting point here, because this disadvantage is most of the time is observed whenever we are in communication with a group of people. For example, if somebody is interested in someone, that the speaker, the sender, may be inclined towards that person, and the other people, the other receivers, are blurred in the background. This way, the self-interest and the attitude of the speaker or the sender dominates. Okay, so the other people are marginalized there, they are sent in the background, while some people are who are of the interest to the to the sender, they are in the foreground. So this way, there arise a sort of discrimination between the receivers. So it affects this way. This point is very important. You have to keep this point in mind whenever somebody asks you what is the disadvantage of oral communication that you like the most. You may include this point, just because here a very negative aspect dominates here, and that is the discrimination in the receivers. So this is something which is very much negative in oral communication. Then the third point, oral communication has the tendency of being distorted. So after delivering a message, if I give you some message orally and I want you to communicate that message to some other person, okay, just because you don't have that message in written, because written messages show uniformity. If you make 1000 copies, the message remains the same. But in oral communication, if you uh, talk to someone, uh, send them some message, and you ask them to deliver that message to other guys, other peoples, so that message might be distorted, just because of the vocabulary that the person has and the style of their talking. So these things may influence the message which was communicated orally. So this way, the message is distorted. The tendency here of the messages distortion is of very important. So the other point is very much simple. It provides no record for future reference. Yes, because in a face-to-face conversation, unless or until you record an audio of the or video of the message, okay, and the very first hand interaction is in oral communication is a face-to-face conversation, okay, or even on a telephone call, unless or until you record that call, you don't have a permanent record for future reference. So that is why this point is very much simple and important. It provides no record for future reference. You may ask, sir, there might be recordings. Okay, although they are spoken, they are oral communication, but still that is the example of the message is being recorded. For example, this type of communication which is I am doing now is also a type of oral communication. But let's take the example of a face-to-face conversation. There we don't have a recording facility, so we communicate and we move onwards. So that's why we don't have a permanent record for future reference. So that's the point here. Other point is it is not suitable for lengthy messages. Suitable for lengthy messages, yeah. In written communication, which was suitable for lengthy messages, we compose a lot of things on our freedom, in our time and in our space. We enjoy that freedom of time and space, and we compose the message comfortably. And we, after even after practicing many times and producing draft 1, draft 2, draft 3, when we are okay with the final draft, then we send that message. But here we lack this facility, because for lengthy messages oral communication is not suitable, because here we lack time for thinking. Okay, in written communication you can think for 5 minutes, then you can write whatever comes to your head in a proper order. But in oral communication, the moment you are speaking, you have to think simultaneously. That is something very challenging, and people are prone to forget things. Okay, so here you don't have much time to think. There are just a few uh, microseconds. For example, when we say okay, see these words are called fillers, because these are the micro seconds durations periods that give you some time to think to what to say next. Okay, so therefore it is not suitable for lengthy messages. Here we are prone to forget things. That's why the order of the message may be disturbed, or we may forget the core concepts, or the message uh, might be affected badly just because we don't have sufficient time to think. The last point is it does not provide sufficient time for thinking before conveying the message. It overlaps with the first point. So again, the same thing here. We have no time to think to properly compose the material, the message. So just because of lacking of the time and the considering the length of the message, these 2 points become disadvantages for oral communication. So after going through the major type of communication, which is verbal communication, inside this verbal communication we talked about two more types, which were written communication and oral communication. Here is a brief activity. uh, uh, Please go through this type of communications. For example, type 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, these examples are there. So after reading these situations, this type of communications, you have to identify which type of verbal communication these mode of communications are. For example, in the very first question, Ahmad is preparing the final report of XYZ company for the year 2018 to 2019. So you might be able to identify the type of verbal communication. Is it something written communication or oral communication? You might be able to identify these types of communications. Okay, so I hope you have got today's concept, today's topic very well. If you have any questions, please let me know in the comment section or in the WhatsApp group. For Before we move on to the next class, I expect you people to answer these 5 questions in the comment section along with your registration numbers. Okay, thank you.